Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Young. I'm actually going to be starting to do what we call as weekly presentations on what happened in Canada Week. So I'll cover different aspects from government policy, contracts awarded to businesses, and just to give you an overall flavor of what's going on in the market. So basically, you'll see with the agenda here, I'm basically covering new contracts, steel industry, commodity prices, virtual business, hydropower, equity markets, China, housing prices, and household spending. Let's talk about key contracts. There's about 4 things I noticed this week. Bombardier Transportation Unit has secured a contract with a light rail system in Edmonton. Now, those cars will likely be made in the Thunder Bay plant, which helps Ontario in terms of the manufacturing growth, so that's something to bear in mind. The federal government, through its program that Stephen Harper created as part of to help diversify Southern Ontario and the Ontario economy, has helped fund Cutler Forest Products to help expansion in that particular company. CN Rail is looking at a $2.9 billion capital expenditures between rail cars and tracks, so that may benefit the local economy as well. And New Flyer, which is a transportation company that builds buses in Winnipeg, secured a $350 contract with Los Angeles Transit Authority to build new buses. Let's talk about some sectors right now. And everybody looks around and wonders what's going on in the economy. And you have to kind of look by sector. The steel industry is under considerable amount of pressure, both on the overcapacity issue and issues in China in terms of dumping. That's what you're seeing here with Europe. Okay, that came into the news this week that Europe is looking at dumping charges from steel. And what dumping means is putting it into the local market at a price less than it cost. Essar. Everybody that's familiar with Algoma, this is Algoma Steel. It's going through another issue where it's looking for a buyer. I just want you to pay attention to the commodity index here. We're still seeing considerable pressures on commodity prices, and there's no rebound in sight for that or no bottoming out yet. Let's talk about virtual reality. This is a big thing that's come into the news. It's an $80 billion market. It's something that you need to watch as investors. It's an area kind of like with the Internet of Things. It's going to grow probably by leaps and bounds, so it's an area you need to watch as well. And that came in the news quite a bit. And you'll also see particular here with the venture capital that's in play as well. Hydropower. This came into this week as well with more discussion about the growth area. And what I want to highlight here is 80% of the renewable energy in the world is hydropower, and it's something to bear in mind. Canada is significantly a player in that, but it's growing at about an annual growth of about 3%. It's something to bear in mind as well. This just shows you what's happening with the equity markets in general. What's happening to the various indexes is something you need to bear in mind as you watch your portfolios over the next few years. China. Let's talk about China here. It's an area that's important in Canada's case because two-way trade with Canada and China is about $31 billion worth of business. And China is going through some structural issues there. Their stock market's underperforming, and a lot of that has to do with the issues of just how their dynamics of their marketplace works in terms of reporting the numbers and just how they do valuations there. The government backs that up, and that's what you're noticing here with a quote made from an individual that's from one of the Mining Weekly sites, where he's basically quoted it. In the U.S. case, 2/3 of the GDP growth is driven by consumer spending. In China, 1% of GDP is driven by consumer spending. They rely solely on exports. They rely solely on the promptness of that government to build up things. They haven't developed to that point where they've got their consumer spending. And what drives consumer spending? That's after-tax dollars. That's income growth. So until you see their wages come up, they're not going to be able to diversify in terms of consumer spending. So it's something you need to watch as well with China. Housing prices, this just shows you that it continues to grow. There's considerable issues with housing from the bids and asks to the point of time with the income growth areas have not grown as fast as housing prices. So it's a really pressure point we're seeing there. And there's been quotes that the market's about 25% overvalued, and it's something you need to watch as well. Household spending, which just released here, just kind of shows you by province how much money was spent on average of a family household. You're seeing about $60,000 closely is spent every year as part of household spending. Now let's look at the category. This is critical, and it makes sense when you start talking about income, the way income is taxed here. The highest people that make the money are going to be taxed most, and same with the low income. So that's why you're seeing the ratios here. But what you're seeing is that between the lowest quintile and the fourth quintile, they're pretty consistent in how much they spend on food, But look at where shelter comes in the lower income. So that's where a lot of people are renting and stuff like that, and that puts pressure on it. The reason why I want to talk about household spending, because policies coming in play from carbon tax to taxation rules to the ORP are going to impact disposable income, which are going to impact the ability of people to spend money. Driving the economy is driven by consumer spending. So the goal with this kind of presentation I'm talking about on household spending is to give you an overview. The other thing that I want to do quickly with this presentation is also show you different aspects. The last slide that I've got here is retail sales, because 2/3 of the GDP in the US is driven by retail sales. So as long as we're seeing a healthy retail sales environment, that benefits Canada. So they're buying automotives, they're buying food products. That all drives the economy. So in general, what this slide deck is to do is to highlight things that are happening in Canada or impacting the world. Pressures into Canada impact the market. So it's something that you need to bear in mind as you're looking at the numbers and doing your analysis and making your decisions with your life. Thank you.